Welcome to the second video of the Foundry's CameraTracker for After Effects 101 training series. In this video, I'll walk you through pulling a basic track with the plugin.
Okay, so now let's get stuck into the fun bit. Now, camera tracking with our plugin is at its easiest a three-stage process. So let's grab ourselves a clip, import it into After Effects, create ourselves a composition, and then apply Camera Tracker. Okay, so like I said, it's a three-stage process. The first one is that we have to track a whole bunch of feature points. So to do that, I'm going to hit Track Features. Off it goes. It's running forward, identifying a bunch of good feature points and attempting to track them forwards. If a track point falls below a certain quality threshold, it'll drop that point and attempt to reseed another to keep the total number of tracks to a value you set. The default is normally pretty good, I find. It'll then verify these points backwards in reverse, and any points it's seeded on the fly, it'll attempt to track backwards so as to prevent a discontinuity if there's a whole bunch of points that get dropped on a single frame. Now, if you only want to track a certain number of frames, you can flip the analysis range to a specified range and then enter the start and stop points in these params here. Also, if you're going to pop off and make a couple whilst it tracks, you can always switch off the render during analysis toggle here, as that'll prevent it from actually rendering the frames in question and make it track a little bit faster. Okay, so jumping to the end of the track, the next step is to solve. To do that, we're going to hit this button here. Before we do that, however, we'd often want to dial in a number of parameters about the camera. So if we know any of these, we can dial them in beforehand to make the solve better. So first off, for example, if you know the film back of the camera in question, you can pop them in here. Often you can find that off review sites such as DP Review. Many cameras also record the focal length of the lens in question to metadata, and if you can get access to that, you can dial them in here as well. Otherwise, the camera tracker is going to go away and estimate it for us. Now, solving is a process by which we take these tracked feature points and any parameters you've entered about the camera that the sequence was shot with and attempt to build an internal model of where the feature points lie in 3D space and where the 3D camera with which it was shot is located. Once the solve is done, it will pop up this dialog box here. This tells us a bunch about the 3D scene it's created internally. The RMS projection error tells us how good the solve is likely to be. A high number would be a bad thing. In this case, 1.18 isn't brilliant, but it's not the end of the world, so we're going to work with it. Equally, the reference frame is the frame at which the created camera is going to cross through the scene origin point. This is picked by the camera tracker on the basis of it being the frame at which it has the most parallax and the feature points to work with, but you can override it manually in the solve parameters. So let's see that here. So if I toggle on my set reference frame, say, and set my reference frame to 0, and then hit solve again, he's going to go away, calculate the scene again, and come back to me with a reference frame at 0. Right, so we've solved. The next stage is to create an After Effects camera matching that calculated. Hitting Create Scene here, and voila, we have a camera and a parenting null appeared in our composition here. Let's take a look at that in a bit more detail. So if I flip into my custom view, then switch off my background layer and select my camera object, you can see it's created a camera which is pushing back over the course of our scene. At frame 0, he's going through our origin point because that's our reference frame.
Now, just to round out our first track, let's jump ahead a few steps to something that will be covered in more depth in the next tutorial and create ourselves something fun in the scene. What most people go for first is to create a bit of flying text, and who am I to fly in the face of convention? Right, so I'm going to grab a few points and create a null object from them. Next, I'm going to get my text tool and write something in the scene. Now I'm going to turn on 3D for that layer and parent it to the null I've created. Now I'm going to bring up its position parameters and zero them out so that it's not offset in any way from the null, and its rotation is all set at 0 as well. Fantastic. So now I can literally just go in here, offset it how I want to appear from the actual null, and then run preview. And there you have it, a really quick and easy way to stick objects in the scene as though they were there in the first place. This obviously needs a bit of finishing off work, perhaps a nice animate on behavior and some kind of framework around it. Look really cool.